now.
This is something I need to put
We'll
here.
call the meeting to order. Jeff, can you hear us online?
I can, thank you. Can you hear me?
You bet, Jeff. Do we have anyone else online, Josh?
No.
Okay. Before we start the meeting, we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You are.
On, she's showing the full slide show. It's the full view on her screen, but it's not sharing it that way. Anybody know how to, Louis, I don't know if you're more versed in Zoom.
I've
or-
used it, but it's been a while. It isn't Zoom though, it's PowerPoint that you're struggling with.
Sorry, what are you trying to do?
She's trying to
So
get
when she's-
PowerPoint to just show the screen instead of the stuff on the side and the
Yeah,
top.
Well, you, go down and lower.
hers
Oh,
is.
yours is, so I don't know what would cause that.
There you go.
Oh,
You just had it.
now,
Yeah,
you can set that too, because you
Do you know, Lou?
show it as,
And that's
as
what
the
hers is. Hers is showing
slideshow.
it.
right, but she's gotta turn that,
You wanna show that
that,
to
It was
Jeff
just
or
there
something.
again.
Well,
Yeah,
we're just
Or just get that up
but you
there.
gotta transfer the
That up there.
screen.
Yeah.
I think you might have to,
There is a switch where you transfer the screen.
Oh, I probably need
Yeah.
to be hooked up then to the HDMI.
There you go. That's on.
No, it's on her, where you
It's all the way
actually
down
shift.
the bottom.
Yeah,
It's
you
just-
might,
I know, but I'm trying to get full screen up there.
the only other way I've seen it done is if you just go back to your like desktop and go to settings.
Oh, like the display view.
Yeah, and just, I guess, look at, make it mirror instead of, displays.
Tom, you wanna sing while they're trying?
Mr. Chairman,
You go.
Director Isbin, go ahead.
while she's working on that, I just wanted to know Jill Cook from North and Merrily is watching online.
Oh, yes.
It's a little different
than what I
have, but like usually there's a way to.
I don't see anybody else
She's
online.
on.
Oh, there's multiple displays.
It's showing on my desktop.
Oh.
Yeah, a
Okay.
message came across, that's
Yeah.
all.
Can I go to detect?
He's overseas, is it Taiwan?
Well, that's why they wouldn't sign one.
Puerto Rico is advanced.
And up in northeastern Montana. They discovered those a number of years ago when they were doing oil exploration.
What's that?
And they're finding it in the ash, in coal.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's a ton of that.
Yeah, and there's 2 places in Wyoming that's already processing.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And, yeah.
I wonder if I tried this, 'cause
By,
now it's.
in western Wyoming, you're right.
Mike, I guess.
Well, if it's in the ash report.
That's the extent of my IT skills.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Comment on it.
I'm not,
Good.
yeah, I
I'm
might
good.
have to.
hard hook
You guys
to it,
use
it probably will do it.
Well, I'm familiar with both, but.
Well, that-
There is some instructor for the water cable.
Don't venture too much into the Zoom
It
world.
would be wonderful if they, if Colstrip
Sorry, I don't need IT help.
Yeah.
Well,
would be wonderful.
as good or better than me.
I think it's hard hook to that
Yeah.
computer up
These
there.
guys have.
Yeah, but you can change
First
from
time I
here.
interviewed,
Well, I
they
mean,
said,
for,
you know, this was a-
for today,
coal
when
Is it
mine.
a,
And
I
the guy said,
think we should be okay for
actually,
today.
my
We
job
can
was
work
just
something
to
out for the
Okay.
full public hearing,
Rare earth minerals
That-
just on the wall, you know.
work
is that
for
okay
you.
with everybody? Can you?
Yeah.
Everybody can see that all right,
If you
correct?
take, if you take the slides off the sides,
And when
That's
I
what she's
mentioned
trying
it
to
this
do, but
time,
it's-
They didn't wanna talk about it.
Let's just go with what we got here.
Okay,
and
sounds
then,
good.
They're
we can
sworn.
perfect it for the actual public
They
hearing.
are, you can actually switch
I
the
probably should have
page.
checked that.
That's just like diamond mines. A couple, well, we used to have a national.
okay, this meeting is open to any interested member of the public, and the agendas are prepared for the meeting. Agendas may be requested by email from the board secretary, Jen Burnside. And the agenda packages, due to their size, will have to be printed out and there is a hot link on the button, on the tonight's agenda. Could have looked through. Brad and Gina will go over this with us. After that, we'll have public comment. So I'm gonna turn it over to Brad right now.
Yeah. Bo, do you wanna?
Could I just,
No.
No. This is a very unique task order. It dates back, so what I did in anticipation of this meeting and the number of things we'll be talking about is to give a little history. So when was this started? These fine folks made a presentation August 24, 2020, which is 30.8 months ago. And we had a presentation, a board presentation, similar to this, with some 44 pages on June 5, where we went through the various alternatives. And at that time we said, okay, let's take a look at hooking up to the city. And that's why we invited Louis. No, we didn't. Everybody know Louis from the city, he's here. So I think he can shed some light on that later on as we get there. And then the project was put on hold for a while, in September of last year, until we finished task order 29, which had to do with the system ER. My point here is there is sometimes where a project goes on too long, it takes on a life of its own. What does that mean? It costs too much. So sometimes you gotta cut or fish. And I think that this presentation where we're going through all of these alternatives again, bear that in mind. What we're talking about was initiated 2.5 years ago, and things do change, the priority change. Now, I think Brad and Gina will talk about what the next step is following the presentation. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thanks, Bo. And thank you all for hosting us, especially outside of normal working hours. Works for others, sometimes it doesn't, but we appreciate it. I'm Brad Bain. I'm the client manager for the County Water District of Billings Heights, and been working with the district for about 12 or 13 years now. It's been a while. We bring a lot of experience and have worked on a lot of projects with them from cradle to grave, a lot of success projects. Posted right up there. And Gina Berry, the engineer of record for the Northwest PER. She will be leading our presentation today. And I want to remind everyone that the purpose of this presentation is to inform the board on the alternatives, the summary, where are we with the results of the PER. Help you guys understand if we have done this before with the same alternatives, so this would be a little bit of a rerun for you guys, just another update and a relook at prioritization of the projects. So if there are questions to clarify something during the presentation, feel free to ask. I want all the board members to understand what we're going through here. So if you need further clarification, please don't hesitate to interrupt. Otherwise, if we could save all technical questions and or public comments and questions until the end, that would be appreciated.
All right, thank you, Brad.
Yeah.
So first I'll go over some background information. The Department of Environmental Quality, or the DEQ, sets regulations for Montana water systems. Pressures in the distribution system cannot fall below 35 pounds per square inch, or PSI, during the average day demand. During the peak hour demand while fighting a fire, the pressures can't fall below 20 PSI. Why is this a concern? Because when pressures drop below 20 PSI, there's a risk of contamination into the system. So now I'll discuss the pressure zones within the system. Handout number 1 displays the different pressure zones. The main zone, which is the largest zone, is in yellow. The Lake Hills, or the northwest pressure zone, which is the focus of this presentation, is in red orange, and that's located in the northwest corner of the system. The Hawthorne pressure zone is displayed in magenta, and that's in the north central portion of the system. The Rawhide zone is in blue, and it's in the northeast section. And the Hilltop zone is in the southwest corner, and it is displayed in green. Also last summer, the operators started the Inverness booster station and created a temporary Inverness pressure zone, which is located in the southwest corner of the Lake Hills pressure zone. So now I'll talk about the existing and projected demands for the PER. For the existing system, the peak hour demand is 3,000 gallons per minute, or GPM, and the fire flow is 1,500 GPM. The DEQ requires that the design of new infrastructure be projected for 20 years. For the PER, the design year is 2047, and the projected peak hour demand is 4,800 GPM, and the fire flow demand is 1,500.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question right now, if I may.
Go ahead, Director Essman.
Brad, would you prefer I address these to you or to Gina?
Both.
Both of us.
Okay. I know that this entire project requires meeting this 20-year design goal. And that those peak demand hours, as I reviewed the draft over the last week in preparing for this meeting, are based upon population projections that you stated averaged 2% for the district. And my question, I'm a little skeptical about that projection. I want to tell. I've been a lifelong Billings resident, and our growth in the community has always been between 1 and 2, but generally it's been about 1.5. And we're talking about a 20-year projection forward at 2%. In my time on the board, I think our growth has been about 1.2%, not 2%. And that is about a 40% difference, which up front does not make a lot of difference, but over compounding for 20 years adds up to quite a bit of difference. It's a growth in meters between 15% at the lower number or 46% at the higher number, which obviously means the modeling and which results in this demand figure, and the firefighting figure is significantly different. And I am wondering, where did that 2% figure come from? Did you look at the data for the past 20 years to see what the historical average going back 20 years might be to educate you versus the 20 years going forward? Where did the 2% come from?
Yeah, Gina, do you want to handle that, or?
Well, it came from the amount of services, right, the growth in
Yeah,
service.
what we've seen.
And we could do 1.5% if the board agrees for population, but I mean, to be conservative, we do 2%.
Well, it is what we
population
have seen
projection.
in the
Yeah,
Heights.
yeah.
Why would you be willing to share that data with the board for the past 20 years so we can judge that?
Yeah, it wouldn't, I don't think it's based on the past 20 years straight.
Well,
And there are limitations to that, in that it's not the same city it was 20 years ago versus what's the trend today.
Well, yes, but we could examine over the last 20 years what's the current trend. Has the trend changed? And what is the current? I'd like to see the data. Can you provide it to us? Or will you provide it to us?
Jeff, if I may interject, I've done a lot of statistics on Heights water, financially, hydraulically. And overall, our growth have not been very strong, and is less than 2% the last 5 years. However, the demand change, I'm talking about water hydraulically, has changed. I mean, this year we're down compared with last year. So you have ups and downs. Now from winter right now to summer, there is a factor of 3 in usage. So it's very difficult to model the future. And the best way to do it, of course, is using historic numbers, but there are a tremendous variation from one year to the next if we have a dry year. And we're working on the consolidation study, Louis, and that's one of the questions. We're up and down, and you look at past drought, how does that affect our system, you know? And it's drastic. I'm not talking about 2% here, I'm talking about a factor of perhaps 10. So in their model, they have to use something, okay? Can they use 5? Nah. 0? No. So factoring in those variables, if you go back and look at those variables, they are much higher than 2%. So as an engineer, you gotta use a number.
Well, I understand that though.
Right.
Here's my point. As I read the study, it was looking at households and people
Yeah.
and multiplying the meters times 2.39 people and the average use per person. So that seems, and I understand that there's gonna be variations between years, that's typical, but the, there is not, you know, I would like to see what the actual pattern has been in terms of population growth, because it's the population growth that this prior study relied on to create the demand factor. And I would like to be able to judge that, and the public be able to judge that, to see if that is reasonable. Now, there, you know, the swings and all that will be taken into account, but, you know, what drove the modeling was the population. So that's what I'm after. I'd like to get that data. And I would respectfully request it.
All right, respectfully noted.
So now I'll go over the problem definition. The Lake Hills pressure zone has trouble maintaining pressures during high demand events. We use KY pipe to model the hydraulics. And after 2 years, pressures during the existing peak day demand of 3,000 GPM while fighting a fire of 1,500 GPM will fall below the DEQ minimum of 20 PSI. And for the 20-year design year, if no changes are implemented to the existing system, nearly all pressures in the Lake Hills pressure zone are negative during the peak day demand of 4,800 GPM while fighting. This slide right here shows a snip of the KY pipe model simulation. The circles are the pressure nodes and the lines are the pipe types. As you can see in the southwest corner, the pressures are below 20 PSI after 2 years. This next slide shows the results after 20 years, and as you can see, almost all the pressures within the Lake Hills pressure zone are negative.
So, you say in 2 years that the southwest corner is gonna drop to 17. Is that with the Inverness station going or without it going? Because when you guys did the study, when you turned it on this summer, you said that that would be satisfactory for
2 years.
For minimum 3 years. Is
Oh,
what's in
okay.
Well, in this case, the modeling here, no, it does not take that into account. As in,
So that's without the Inverness pump station?
without, yeah, it's assuming that you're gonna keep it offline. Yeah. An Inverness pump station, it's running, really, you guys are, who has a donut in their trunk? I do, put it on when I get a flat tire. Right now, the Inverness pump station running during the summertime, you're running on your spare right now. So it shouldn't be relied on in the future. But it should be there as far as like our emergency use, sure. But not necessarily a long-term use, so let's run this thing in the ground, then we got a serious problem.
Now I'll discuss the alternatives. The first alternative was increasing the smaller diameter mains near Lake Almo. Handout number 2 displays the alternatives. There's 2 sub-alternatives. Alternative 1A, which is displayed in red, includes upsizing about 4,600 linear feet of 8-inch PVC with 12-inch PVC. Alternative 1B, which is displayed in orange, included upsizing about 8,700 linear feet of 6-inch and 8-inch PVC with 12-inch PVC. Here are the water modeling results for the projected year of 2047. Alternative 1A is not viable since the pressures are all negative. As with alternative 1A, alternative 1B is also not viable since it didn't meet the pressures and the pressures are negative. The next alternative is increasing the suction capacity for the St. Andrews booster station. It is displayed in handout number 3. It includes upsizing about 3,300 linear feet of 12-inch asbestos cement or ACE pipe with 18-inch PVC. It also includes increasing 120 linear feet of 8-inch PVC with 18-inch PVC on the discharge side of St. Andrews. Also, as part of this alternative, the capacity at St. Andrews will need to be increased 4,700 gallons per minute.
All right, does that take more pumps than we have, or did the pumps do that? Are there
It would require more pumps.
Probably reconstruction of the pump station.
total
expansion.
reconstruction of the pump station?
It is old. I mean, I would anticipate some upgrades will be required just for.
Most likely total, because you're pushing through a 6-inch header. So,
Could be one of those things where you have to keep it online while also constructing.
Right.
Those details would be figured out during the actual design process. That were to be chosen.
What is the current capacity of St. Andrews?
3,000, right?
3,000 gallon GPM?
This slide presents the results for the hydraulic modeling for alternative 2. It is viable since all of the pressures are above 20 psi. It has a total capital cost of around $5 million.
And that includes the St. Andrews pump station, correct?
Yes,
Or is that just putting in the pipe?
it includes increasing the capacity. The next alternative is installing an elevated tank. The elevated tank would be about 100,000 gallons and it would have a total height of 100 feet. Approximately 1 acre of land would have to be purchased from a private landowner. The exact location of the land is to be determined, since our previous location currently has a church being built on it. Also, as part of the alternative, the Inverness pump station would have to be retrofitted in order to pump the water up to the tank. Alternative 3 is viable since all the pressures are above 20 psi. It has a total cost of around $2 million. The next alternative includes installing a second meter connection with the city of Billings. Handout number 4 displays the general connection details. It would include connecting to the city's existing 24-inch on Wixland. This alternative is viable since all the pressures will be above 20 psi. Total capital cost is around $970,000. The next alternative includes installing transmission mains. It's divided into 2 sub-alternatives, alternative 5A and alternative 5B. Handout number 5 displays alternative 5A, which is installing a 24-inch transmission main. It includes installing about 13,000 linear feet of 24-inch PVC transmission main. As part of this alternative, St. Andrews will not have to be in operation. This alternative is viable since all the pressures will be above 20 psi. It has a total capital cost of around $12.1 million. Alternative 5B includes installing a 24-inch and a 12-inch transmission main. It is displayed in handout number 6. It'll include installing about 4,000 linear feet of 24-inch transmission main and about 5,500 feet of 12-inch PVC transmission. As part of this alternative, St. Andrews will still need to be in operation, but it wouldn't be operated as much. This alternative is viable since all the pressures are above 20 psi. It has a total capital cost of around $6.95 million.
So if you went bigger than a 12-inch, would that alleviate St. Andrews then? That is a 12-inch to capacity, or, I mean, it doesn't cost that much more to put in a bigger pipe. It's just the cost of the pipe.
I don't think as a standalone it would do that.
You'd have
Or
to
as what I
connect
remember,
further to the
We'd have to
west.
either have another
Yeah.
loop
And
on it
Because
and
Just-
or,
In discussions with Drake, when he was modeling it, it's more of the connection east to west. The farther west you get, the more gravity head you get.
but we really can't do much more unless you start upsizing, say, that purple grid line there from a 12 to, say, an 18. I mean, it's only, you can only get it so far before you get to a bottleneck, and
But that's what you're
It's just
hooking
not-
onto in this corner is purple with that 24, and you gotta feed it all the way back over to here, so your restricted part is that purple line.
the way this models out, well, you got a longer way, it's probably got twice the length going here. If you were to, say, make that orange line a 18-inch or 24.
And there's
Well,
all those
you
6
still gotta
inches
fight all
too.
the, you still gotta fight all the head pressure issues in the existing pipes to get down to the southwest corner where all the elevated areas are. So really you're fighting physics to get the water there.
The further west you go, the less restrictive the southern flow would be. Is that kind of, because if you're tying in, you say you tie in here, it helps because you're jumping right into a 12. And this 12 is dumping into a bunch of 8s, but if you take that 24 all the way across, that 24 is dumping into another 12 as well as the second 12. So you're applying more volume.
The last alternative is implementing water restrictions during peak day demands. Enforcing and policing of these water restrictions may be difficult to do. Also, some people may not follow these restrictions, and because of it, this alternative is not viable. So last summer, the operators turned the Inverness pump station back on. The water model revealed that it could supplement pressures for 2 years. I understand that. I think when we provided you with the Northwest PBR in June, that was probably 3 years, 2 to 3 years then. But now since it's like 8 months later, that's why it's only 2 years right now. Now I'll discuss the evaluation of alternatives. The potentially viable alternatives included alternative 2, upsizing the water main on the suction side of the St. Andrews booster station and increasing the flows at the St. Andrews booster station. Alternative 3, installing a pedestal elevated tank. Alternative 4, installing a second meter connection with the city of Billings. Alternative 5A, installing a 24-inch transmission main. And finally, alternative 5B, installing a 24-inch and a 12-inch transmission main. The evaluation criteria included the net present value of life cycle costs, the constructability and feasibility of the alternative, environmental impacts, public health and safety, operation, maintenance, and expandability, and the last criterion is public preference and use. The higher the score the alternative used, the better. This table displays the net present value for all alternatives. It is the most objective criterion, and it had the second highest weighting factor of 12. The most expensive alternative was 5A, so it received the lowest score of 0.35. And the least expensive alternative was alternative 4, installing the second meter connection, and it received the highest score of 9.65, and all the other alternatives scored in between those values. Now I'll discuss the technical and construction feasibility criterion. It had a weighting factor of 4. Alternative 2, which is upsizing on the suction side of St. Andrews, would probably be the most difficult. Winning is pretty high traffic street. Also there's potential for groundwater and hydrocarbons, and also modifying St. Andrews will be pretty difficult. Therefore, it received a score of 3. Alternative 3, which is the tank, rehabbing Inverness may be difficult. It received a score of 4. Installing second meter connection, the construction is pretty straightforward, but the technical side is not feasible, so it received a score of 4. And finally, the transmission main alternatives were pretty straightforward to construct, but there are multiple wetland, canal, and 5 Mile Creek crossings, so it received a score of 7. The next evaluation criterion is environmental impacts. It had a weighting factor of 5. Alternatives 2, 3, and 4 have minimal impacts since they're in previously disturbed areas, so they received a score of 5. Alternative 5A is located in sage grouse habitat, so it received a lower score of 3. Alternative 5B is also in sage grouse habitat, but it disturbs less of their habitat, so it received a score of 4. Public health and safety, it had a low factor of 3 because all the alternatives at this point are meeting the public health and safety, or else they wouldn't be viable. So all the alternatives received a score of 7. So operation, maintenance, and expandability, it was weighted with the highest score of 20. Alternative 2, it will require increasing the capacity of the St. Andrews pump station, so there'll be continual O&M. It received a score of 3. The tank alternative will require the operation and maintenance of the Inverness pump station and the new storage tank. It received a score of 3. The second metered connection alternative, St. Andrews offline. However, a new agreement with the city would be required. There's not as much confidence in the long-term hydraulic conditions, so it received a score of 1. Alternative 5A, St. Andrews will be offline, but this agreement would not have to be modified. It received a score of 8. And finally, alternative 5B, St. Andrews usage will be reduced. So the last criterion is public preference and user rates. It received, or it had a weighting factor of 6. Alternative 2 has a medium cost, so it received a score of 6. Alternative 3, a low to medium cost, so it received a score of 6. Least expensive alternative is alternative 4, so it received the highest score of 7. Alternative 5A is the most expensive, so it received the lowest score of 2. And finally, alternative 5B received a score of 4. So this table right here displays all of the scoring and the preferred alternative, which has the highest score, and that was alternative 5B, which is installing the 12-inch and 24-inch transmission main. So now I'll discuss funding and the preferred alternative.
Could we go back to the last slide? I'm sorry, yeah.
The decision matrix?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the public interest and user rate column. So the score, these scores were from 1 to 10?
Correct.
So, and then you take the scores and you multiply it times the weighting of 6?
Correct.
So if, for example, the alternate number 4 second connection had been weighted at 9, or if it scored 9, because it was obviously the lowest cost to the ratepayers, times 6, that score would have been changed from 42 to 54, which would have increased that alternative 4 score by a total of 12. So then alternative 4 would have scored 252. Is my math correct on that?
Yes.
Assuming it had been scored at 9 instead of 7?
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this slide right here displays the water usage cost calculator from your guys' website. This is an example for a 3/4 inch on average. They use about 4,400 gallons per month. This next slide shows what the average cost is for a 3/4%, and it's about $35.94 per month. So the total capital cost for the preferred alternative is around $6.95 million. It is recommended that the district take out a state revolving fund loan. Also, the district can also contribute $2 million if they wish to. Using these numbers, the user rate increase would be approximately 35 cents per 1,000 gallons of water. Using the previous example, it would increase the rates by $1.54 per month and about a 4 point. So the next steps is to hold a public hearing on both the PER and the environmental side on March 19th, so in a few weeks. And then if the district chooses, hopefully they adopt the PER on April 16th. And then the district could apply to SRF in April, with project design starting in May. And then the DEQ submittal probably would not occur until March 2026. Land acquisition and surveying and environmental considerations. An advertisement for bids would be in June of 2026 with the recommendation to award in July of 2026. Construction would hopefully start in September of 2026. There'd probably be a winter shutdown with spring startup in April of 2027, with the final inspection in June of 2027, an 11-month walkthrough in May of 2020. And I'll open up to any questions.
I do have a question. So on page 12 of the PER, it says that the average cost of the proposed project per month per user is $4.46. Because the PER that you gave us in December had the average cost for the 3/4 inch user at, and I don't have that number down, over $77 a month by the time
Well,
you.
we've updated this PER and I provided Josh with a link, so there's been revisions.
Since December and since Monday.
But
Well,
you
that's
mentioned
not
$76.
residential, that's for
Yeah.
commercial
Yeah.
and
May I
irrigation.
interject here?
Yes,
I just want to correct the numbers. If you take all our transactions for fiscal 2024, 151,000 line items, which I've done. And if you sort it all out to figuring out the usage and charges, you'll come up with that $70. But the rate you're talking about is the 3/4 inch unit.
Residential.
In this number here, the 70, is commercial, irrigation, so that skews it. So, Louis, you're familiar with the EDU, the equalization of the usage? Because we have, so what they do to, especially for investment, they prorate the large user in the residential units. So let's say McDonald's, they use a lot more water than a family of 4. So they have an EDU of 4 or 5 times residential.
What?
So that is
Okay.
the calculation you see. It's not misleading, but it's confusing as hell because it doesn't relate to anything we talk about on the board level. We don't talk about EDUs, you know. So the cost there is by EDU. I'll be happy to send you this calculation here, which brings it down to the residential, what they are paying. So it seems confusing. And the reason why I know all this, because I went through the same thing you did, is that I can't relate to my statistical report. I can't relate to it. And I want to know, what is the cost? How is it going to affect the consumer, the person out there? And based on what I just told you, it's about $48 the average customer pays now. And based on what I'm talking about, that person using a little less than 6,000 gallon, which is about $2, so it will be around $50 and some 30 cents. I'll be happy to send you this stuff, because it is confusing for the consumer to kind of relate to these numbers. No, they never see it. They never
Well,
see.
but this is directly in the PER, so are you gonna update the PER?
No,
Yes,
the
that-
PER is done by state, that's all state regulating, the way you do it. Why are we doing it that way? To get the loan, the SFR loan. You have to go through, it's very detail oriented, the way you do it, okay? So the process here is very Montanian. You know, I'm from New York. We look at things black and white, and this is confusing as hell. So for you, the board member, to make a decision, you need to know, how is it going to affect the average Heights consumer? They don't want to talk about millions. Nobody wants to spend millions on water. No way, you know? But I'm willing to spend more money on water if I know I will have it 3 years from now. I will have the pressure, and I'll see my community grow, okay? So we dumbed it down per 1,000 gallon, and that's what we charge you. It's per 1,000 gallon, plus the $1.30 for the maintenance, and the 19, whatever. And it doesn't matter who you are. You have the same fixed $21 plus. So the way we did it here makes it more palatable. Especially, I'm not telling you that the board members don't understand the EDU, but the end of the day is we're here. We're responsible for the cost of the water we're selling to the customer. And the minute we talk about an $8 million project, forget it, guys. Don't spend the money. Keep the money, like you said. Invest it. Hey, every day of the week or month, they pay a certain fraction of their bill for investing in the future. So in that rate structure, as you know, we've been through this in great detail with Ref Tillis, we build it into the rate structure, the investment. So the $2 million that we suggest we kick in, customers already paid that. Why should we charge them again? They already paid in every month. They paid in a certain fraction for investing in the future. And it's up to us to invest it properly in the infrastructure. Okay, so this is one project that's been on the book for 8 years. Since you build the Oxbow tank, or that was in the planning stage. So what we're talking about here is nothing really super new. Did I do good selling, John?
No, you can ask for the signature.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question for Brad, if I may.
We have one more in the audience first, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Mike.
I got the same thing with Bo here, that I agree with him a little bit. Supposedly we have $8.5 million in the bank. I don't know exactly the total figures.
Not far off.
But the point being here is that money's to be used for infrastructure. Or the alternative is you give a rebate back to the public. That money's not to be sitting in a bank just doing nothing. If it's used for purposes of repairs, that's great. Otherwise, the ratepayers should be rebated that money back.
Agreed. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes.
Jeff?
Oh, you called on me, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan, could you go back to that scoring graphic? There we go. Brad, my question is, considering the fact that alternative number 4, two places I see where scoring made a significant impact. Number 1, on technical construction feasibility, where it was ranked a 4, without much explanation. And I provided an email in advance of this meeting to try to get some further information on that. And then the public interest in user rates, since we're talking about money, and that's what is important to our customers, was scored 7 out of 10. Can you explain to me why it was scored, why at 8% of the cost of alternative 5? Why it scored at 7 instead of 10?
So Jeff, there's no exact science to how you weigh these things. Usually what it comes down to is what are the interests for the area and or the operators of the system. For instance, if I were to do a PER in Hawaii, it probably isn't going to be done or weighted the same way as a PER in Billings, Montana. So in a way, there is a subjective value to these. And we do have to go through the process, and we consult with the operators, we consult with the management of the district and or municipality. We go by experience of writing Montana PERs, which Gina has a lot of. And so there's a number of factors that come into play here. But we do have to do the exercise, even though it's not an exact science set, but it is required by the Uniform App and the funding agencies.
Can I follow up then? So did the operators, that is our management, direct you to score that as a 7 instead of a 9 or a 10?
What is he talking about?
In making that subjective scoring assignment, where did you come up with the 7?
So again, it's a lot of, I don't have it listed out here, or Gina, I know you haven't necessarily listed out here, but we can go back to the notes and look how we decided on weighing these things, and would imagine that a lot of it is resulting from past experience PERs, what the operators are saying is, they're the ones that are going to be doing the O&M on these things. They should be given their feedback on how important that is to them. Say like where's the heights going in the future? Do they want to get rid of pump stations and convert it to as much gravity as possible? Yes, they'd like a linear system as much as possible. So that things like that do control the weights of things. And I couldn't tell you right here, right now, what the notes were behind it, why we weighted this way, but it's a lot of those factors that go into it, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, but there is definitely, when you compare the decision matrix from the last run of this versus the current one, there's been a significant change in the scoring system. That's obvious. And what you just told me is that the staff had a large input in terms of how that scoring change was made. Thank you.
Staff had nothing to do with it.
Management did.
We did.
And that's what I heard from him.
Well, so as far as the public interest side, a second meter connection does not provide for any new infrastructure. The alternative 5B, by extending that 24-inch main down and then a 12-inch main, that's more infrastructure that's in place that more users can hook to. Kind of the if you build it, they will come kind of thing. Not that we're putting all our eggs in that basket, but by starting that process, by stretching that line out further, the opportunity for more growth and more development is larger, simply by having the infrastructure already in the ground.
And also, didn't the board last year pass a resolution on the second meter connection?
Yes.
So that
Yeah,
was another factor.
August 21, resolution 02324. And if the board wants to relitigate that, they can make a motion to do that, but, we've been through that, before. To answer Jeff's question, as far as the decision-making metrics, that the management staff here had nothing to do with this scenario. I just want to make that clear.
Not a direct score at this, score at that.
Right.
Tom, you had a question?
I have a couple of remarks. On rating this, that's why we have high engineers and higher engineering firms, is to do the technical work. That is Interstate's job. The city hires engineering firms to do the same thing. It's not an in-house position for anybody to rate these kinds of things. As far as our reserves, we keep hearing people want to know why we have so much reserves. It's because our rates are set so that we can do our capital improvement projects as they came up, and we can afford them. Now, each project still needs more funding. Nothing's paid for. Plus, there's a big, huge problem. We have 3 reservoirs and I don't know how many miles, 600,000 linear feet of pipe in the ground. You can have a major catastrophic event, and that $6 million can go awful quick in a catastrophic failure. This is an earthquake fault that we live on. Pipes break in earthquakes. Things happen. This is why we have reserves, so that we can handle catastrophic problems. We know we're gonna have them. The city knows they're gonna have them. Louis, what's the city's reserve in their water utility, or just reserves? Do you have any idea?
I can't tell you, I'm your technical guy, I'm not the finance guy,
You
unfortunately.
can't
got the wrong guy.
operate without the understanding of catastrophic failures in a utility like this. You've got to have some preparation.
Louis?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the weighting factor element of this. So I come at this having worked on the consulting engineering side, and then working for the city of Billings. So in my experience with weighting factors, I'm just curious how you guys set yours. Typically it's the client or like the board would say, here's what's important to us prior to the analysis. So I'm just curious, is that how those were decided, or how are the weighting factors decided?
Yes, we did use the operators and the board's input on like what they thought was most important. That's why operation and maintenance has the highest factor.
Okay, so it's board and operation.
I'm not a big fan of this, but you have to do it for
Well,
the
and-
uniform county. You have to come up with a scoring situation,
Yeah,
justify it. You
I'm
have to.
familiar with doing this kind of analysis. I'm
And
just
a lot
curious.
of it has, in my experience, a lot of it, and Jimmy probably could agree with this, or you've seen it, I'm sure, it's really the mission statement of what works for the district or the municipality. It's not an apple. It's always something.
Well, another thing is this meeting was to discuss the results with the board and get your input. I mean, we could decide, how to re-weigh the factors a bit if everybody can get to an agreement on each factor or each
Is
criterion.
that based on a Montana?
No,
state?
no.
Don't you have to?
It's
evaluate-
subjective, so you can change the weighting factors depending
Yeah,
on
but you
the
have to
client.
have a system to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So the weighting factors, is it the same as what was 24-inch originally?
So you mean before there was a
The May-
PER or?
The May
Oh,
13,
they're
2024.
different, they're different.
They're different, they've
Yeah,
changed since
yeah,
then?
yeah.
Frank, you had a question?
Okay, so, in my reading on this, I'm coming up with the fact that number 4, even though it was more than 100% above anybody else in the May 24 study that you guys did, to not even in first place, tied for second in this one. And what I got out of it is, because the board voted for a resolution to pursue 4, but there was misleading statements at that meeting when we did that. Not really misleading, but like from January 26th, and it says 2027, so I don't know if you guys got a time machine or what, but I think it was supposed to be 2024, where Louis Engel, Scott Emmerich, Brad Bohm, Bo Anderson, Josh Simpson all met and had a meeting. And some of the points that were markers against this was Louis suggested that maybe you guys would have to keep St. Andrews Station going for fire protection. One of the other things was the pressure difference. Water's claiming they got more pressure in the city, and so it's not gonna work. And so it's the hydraulic study. Did you guys actually go back and confirm or work this stuff out to find out if this was actually an impediment going forward with this? Did anybody check the hydraulics? Is that gonna work? Is the city gonna have, is the city gonna have enough water to do it? All that stuff. And I'm going like, and then, and I made copies here if anybody wants them. In September, Louis handed this out. Now, I know that wasn't in time for the August meeting, but you guys should have got a copy of this, where it says that DEQ says the city can decide what we need in that pit. And at Walter Pump Station, there's a flow meter and a valve, no double check valves. And it, on this letter from Matty, is it? Matt?
Matt Wade.
Yeah, it says DEQ would defer to the city's requirements for cross-connection control, if any. That means they don't even need it. This is, I can pass these out. Did you guys get one of these? Matt, did you have one?
There's contradicting information where you bring it
Hey,
up.
I'm just telling you what I got here. Anybody want one, they can have it. There's plenty of copies. And so, this is the cheapest way to get this done. 10 years, maybe we're gonna need this other one, but right now, this is the cheapest way, and that $900 and some thousand, if we don't need that double valve, we could probably cut that down to $500,000 for just a flow meter and single valve.
I have it.
I think backflow preventers are required at.
I'm just telling you what he sent to Louis. We don't have one at the Walter Pump Station, do we?
Yeah, but regulations changed from when Walter's Pump Station was installed.
Well, that's,
No, I mean, if you have the.
did you get a copy of that? You might want one.
Thank you.
Could I just give a little perspective on that from the city?
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know, am I out of order here talking, am I supposed to? Okay. First off, thanks for letting me be here, I appreciate just getting to hear it, and obviously, there's a lot of City of Billings residents in the Heights Water District, so Bo and I have a shared interest in, you know, doing the best and making the bug go as far as we can for city residents, and even those outside the city residents. So, regarding the double check valve, our perspective is it's the same water source, okay? It's coming from the same thing. I'm serving you water at Walter Pump Station, could also be serving you water at a second connection. You know, typically you see double check valve assemblies if it's connected to like an industry, like for instance, Phillips 66. We have a double check valve there for backflow because for obvious reasons we don't want oil getting sucked back into our water system, right? So the perspective of the City of Billings is that the risk is pretty low if we have a single check valve. Again, that's what we have at Walter Pump Station. We also have several, even besides the check valve, there's interconnections between the City of Billings and the Heights Water District just with gate valves. And, you know, those provide less protection than a check valve does. So, again, it's not my decision. I'm here to just kind of give the city input. and advise from a perspective of a ratepayer who is in the Heights Water District, but in the city of Billings, that's pretty low risk to us, and if it's a cheaper option that the board wants to pursue, we're certainly willing. I can write a letter. More or less what that email says is that DEQ, if we write a letter that says a single check valve is acceptable, if this were the preferred alternative, then it would be acceptable to DEQ. So we'd be willing to write a letter if that is something that you all would want to save money.
As long as DEQ is okay with providing deviation for the MCA that says you have to have this protection in place. And, which, you know, it's
Yeah,
not
I
out
don't
of
see
the question,
this
I don't
as a
think. But they may require a study not only on our side of the valve, they may also require some kind of technical report on the city side of it as well, and I'm not really sure how they work.
But that's his email. The email from Matt is saying otherwise, so you're saying, okay, then you wrote a
Yeah.
letter saying
And
that it was okay.
it's not uncommon. I mean, like when you build a water plant, when you build a pump station, it's not uncommon to ask DEQ for variances. Because not every law can cover every single instance. So it's not uncommon to go, hey, this doesn't really apply in this situation, so we are requesting a variance from this regulatory issue. I mean, the interstate's not wrong, that you can, you know, that is the absolute highest level of protection you can provide for backflow prevention. That's great. But does that meet the intent of what you would want a backflow preventer device on? I would argue it doesn't, but especially considering it's the same water source.
Depends on what state did.
I got just a comment on Tom's comment about the money in the bank. I have no problem, and I don't think any of the ratepayers have any problem with using a reserve fund. Unfortunately, this project has been going on since 2022. The cost of that has increased now, probably tenfold. And if we don't come up with a solution, and this is what you board members are here for, is to come up with a solution so that we can solve this problem. And the longer we wait, the more expensive it gets. And that's the problem we have as ratepayers. We're not getting any action from this board to get to a certain point so we can address this issue and other issues. We need some confirm something so that we, hey, I don't think we're mind paying $1.38 or whatever, more 1,000, that's kind of inconsequential. The point being is, if the cost keeps going up for these projects, and which they are, we're not making any decisions here, this is the problem. Thank you.
Any comments?
Well, I have a comment. In my prior life, I used to make DCEs and RPCs, backflow preventers. I've been to USC, University of Southern California, their lab where they test these. And those, I know why we have backflow preventer in this world. I don't know if you read about incidents or cross incidents. There's a reason for all this shit, okay? And Montana State, I try to look for it, but I don't see it. Clearly indicates if you feed in to a same area, you have to have backflow preventers, okay? If you don't believe me, look at your own specs. Look at your own specs on fire protection. You have backflow preventers when you loop it around a building. You do, right? Yes or no?
It depends on the application.
Well, we have the recorder going here, okay? I don't mean to quote
I'm not here
but
on
be an
trial,
engineer,
Bo.
be an engineer. You don't know, tell me you don't know.
I am here just to give comment in the interest of the city of Billings. It is not my decision. It is, I'm just here to provide public comment.
Okay.
That is
You
the
don't
opinion, that is
represent
the
this.
opinion of the city of Billings. If you don't want the opinion, that's fine. That is my opinion.
I'm only
giving-
referring to your own spec sheets.
to my spec sheets. You're gonna have
You're
to be more
city of
specific.
engineer. The city of Billings spec sheet clearly indicates backflow preventers on the building where you have two connections. Am I wrong? Yes or no? If you don't know, say I don't know.
I don't know why I'm on the
Okay,
truck.
fine. But you voiced your opinion about this project. You must know something. You obviously speak for the city. And I think there's at least 3 or 4 board members that do the same thing. Fine, we can redo this, make a resolution, and we open it up again. We already discussed this. I used to make these valves. I used to sit on the AWWA backflow committee. And if you guys want to save $1,000 or $200,000, because you want to play with somebody's life, cross connection, you're playing with kids. Why do they have backflow preventer in schools, hospitals? Okay, in this case, hey, we can make our own decision. That's not the world I want to live in. I'm 77 years old. I have lots of patents and valves, okay? I know this shit. And if you say, Bo, you're wrong, say so, please. I want to be corrected, but misinformation, my purpose in life is to inform these guys so they can make better decisions, not to catch them wrong. I want to help them make the best decision. And what these wonderful people have presented is the best decision. Hydraulically, financially, okay, you want a cheap project? Okay, pick that one. But it's not hydraulically, it's going to help you. And I want you to be right, not wrong. So I'm a little emotional about this because I spent so much time. And Dr. Singer, who started this at USC, and obviously AWWA, they copied the USC laws and the knife protection too. And we exported these laws to Japan. We had a considerable market share in Japan. Why do they have backflow preventers in Japan? They have earthquakes. So what happens when they have earthquakes? All the water comes out of the buildings and mixes in the distribution piping. People get sick. So in Australia, they had a considerable market share too. So I'm not trying to bullshit you here, but let's deal with facts and the standards. Okay, and there are standards, and in Montana, you have standards for backflow preventers. Very simple. And as far as going back to a decision, a resolution you guys already made, you want to go back all the time, you got to stop this stuff. Stop and go. Stop and go. No good for us, no good for the Heights customer. Say, hey, if you don't know what to do with our money, return it. Return the damn money.
Amen.
Okay? These guys have spent 2.5 years trying to come up with a solution for it, and we're going nowhere.
Tom, this district requires backflow prevention on all of the private projects. For instance, we have Cherry Creek Estates. Everybody's familiar with the big 360 unit Cherry Creek Estates. The district feeds it from 2 spots. Both spots have backfeed.
That's right.
If they didn't, last summer when winter, when stormwater work was done on Wicks Lane, we had 100 residents out of water. They wouldn't have had to be all out of water. The vast majority could have had water if it could have flowed through Cherry Creek, out the other exit, and backfed, but it couldn't. Wicks Lane had to be shut off. No water got to Cherry Creek's second meter. But they had water. But everybody between had none. Over 100 homes went without water for hours. And again this fall, the same thing. It wouldn't have been necessary for all those homes if we wouldn't have required backflow prevention. We could have flowed the water through Cherry Creek's pipes back to our customers. And if they got sick, who's gonna get the fault? The piping in Cherry Creek is theirs, it's not ours. The piping in Windsor Estates is theirs, it's not ours. We have several of those, and they all have backflow prevention. To hook a second connection with the city and not have a backflow prevention would defy everything we've ever done in this district. That is silly.
Okay, other comments? Other questions?
Most states do have that in place, and it's not uncommon.
I have one question. With the height of the oxbow and the pressure coming down, are we at a higher pressure than the city over at that?
At times. Significantly,
So what do we have a meter that goes both ways? Can we unwind when we
The
have?
magneter would, but not a Victoria.
Because when we're feeding from oxbow, we get a lot of height advantage compared to what the city.
It's not a lot, but,
Well,
the
it has to
different,
be a
at
lot.
some time, we don't know.
They're,
No.
I can speak to the reservoir elevations because we operate them there. They're very close, they're within a
Yeah.
few feet of water surface elevation, which just basically means if the reservoirs are full, then they're gonna be virtually the same pressure, especially as long as Oxbow has to go to get to the City of Billings connection. If you were to have, say, Oxbow completely empty or low on the low end, let's say it's 20 feet down, and we're at the high end, arguably you could have maybe a 50-foot difference there. And so you would want something to make sure that it's controlled.
Yeah.
And, don't hear me wrong, I'm, kind of going back to the previous point, I'm not proposing no backflow prevention. And to their point, if it's a house, if it's a restaurant, we have backflow prevention. Where we feel this is a little bit different case is you guys are a reputable water district serving the same water that we are. Hence why we feel that it's an acceptable level of risk. Again, that's not for me to decide for the board. I'm just saying that the City of Billings would be willing to do that. Additionally, I think, back to the point on alternative four, if you want double backflow preventers, my understanding from their analysis is that it'll still work, right? I mean, so
You're in that margin of error.
It's too much pressure.
okay, well, either way. So, back to the original question, it's possible, yes, you could have our tanks, which are up by Skyview High School, and Oxbow at differing elevations. How is that gonna interact? You want something to be able to control the amount of flow going back and forth. In this case, we wouldn't want something going to us from you. I mean, you could set it up that way, but that's probably not what we wanna do, because you'd make the metering more complicated. So you could set it up in a vault like that. You might wanna do some sort of pressure sustaining valve. You might wanna do something that allows us, a break happens and we wanna make sure our tank doesn't drain. Maybe you put an extra valve that's SCADA controlled there or something. We have similar things like that in the rest of our system. So that's, you could, there's potential, you probably want some sort of protective device there.
I'm not one to figure out how this and that works. I'm not even close to an engineer, but I see that where there could be a legal aspect. Who shot on if the worst case scenario flowed back and we had too much chlorine in, or, whatever.
Certainly.
Stuff would happen, and which
Yeah.
puts both parties at a max.
Well, no matter what, I'd be in trouble because I'm serving both ends, right?
Yeah, you're gonna drink it in. You're gonna get it fed to you on the other end.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from board members or from the public?
I just have some additional public comments and.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just typed these up based on my review. I can just leave these here for somebody who wants to read them. I can summarize them, or would that probably be best?
If it's about the meter,
Which meter?
exactly.
So, these are just my comments on the report. So, they can be summarized by, three concerns that I have are the design condition assumptions. So this is somewhat similar to what Mr. Essman said earlier about the population projections, but this relates specifically to the flow rate that you select as your design condition, okay? So the flow rate that they've selected in their model is the peak hour, so like the worst condition plus a fire in that same area, okay? I think, in my experience, both as a consultant and I know in our City of Billings model, that's not how we do it. We consider that overly conservative. What we use is, if there's a tank on that portion of the distribution system, which I understand that the Lake Hills zone has a tank on it, we use what's called the max day plus the fire flow. Now, why is that significant? There's some math there about how I've typically seen it in the industry, but what it results in is that, you know, instead of, like for the current condition, for the City of Billings model, we wouldn't necessarily use 4,500 GPM as the design condition. We would use 3,000 GPM because we feel that the peak hour, so it's kind of like conservatism built on conservatism built on conservatism, can get you to a spot where you may not want to be. So we've accounted for that in our model, and we don't calculate it that way. So my recommendation is that, not that you use my word, but that you would get a second opinion on that. Get a second opinion that you are indeed using what you deem as the best design conditions to project the future. So that's really the summary of the first one. Similarly, in 2047, you know, is that design condition the one that you want to use for that Lake Hills pressure zone? Again, don't take my word. I would look into that one a little bit more. We just don't use that very conservative design condition in our my next comment is this predetermination to not use existing booster stations. I think Frank might have hit on this already, but so let's see, the report states on 108, it is the CWD-BH's operator's preference to eliminate the use of booster station. Another factor in this criterion is the CWD-BH passed a resolution on October 21st, 2024 to not seek a second meter connection with the City of Billings, which was already stated here. So I was just unclear on why you would not want to continue to use the existing booster stations if it is the most cost-effective alternative. And it's also unclear why the resolution was passed prior to getting the results of this PER, something you might want to consider. Then finally, weighting of alternatives 1 and 2, you know, my understanding from the system-wide PER, one of the, I think the biggest capital item was replace an AC pipe, right? So one thing you might consider, you know, take the focus off the second connection to the City of Billings, is that I'm not sure in the matrix analysis you accounted for the fact that, let's say it's alternative 2. So alternative 2 is the one with the suction pipe that gets replaced to St. Andrews Pump Station. So that pipe's AC, so you're going to replace it anyway. So I guess one thing to consider is you're kind of killing two birds with one project, if you will. So if you're going to replace that pipe anyway, does it make that alternative more attractive? Both 1 and 2 replace AC pipes. So something you might want to consider when making a decision. So I put a suggested path forward. Again, take it for what it is. I am not, it's up to you. I just want you guys to have the information. So just to summarize, using the industry standards to estimate design flows, I just recommend getting a second opinion on the water model's design assumptions to ensure industry standards are utilized in estimating design flows. It suggests more fully understanding, you guys are already asking these questions, your operator's preference to eliminate the use of booster stations, because continued use of booster stations can result in considerably less cost. Considering alternative 2 I just described related to St. Andrews Pump Station, maybe weight that in your matrix, like, hey, we're going to replace this AC pipe anyway. Does that factor into how you adjust for the cost because you would be doing an additional project to replace it?
We already considered that, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah,
Great.
That's a good point, though. We already considered that.
And then reconsider the board's previous resolution to not seek a second connection to the city's water system. And again, if that's double.
That one we took care of, too.
Okay. You heard my opinion about a single check valve. It sounds like it'll still work with a double check valve, even under very conservative design conditions, so maybe consider that. And then, similarly, in my last bullet, should the board insist on a double check valve for the second connection, maybe consider an alternative where a second connection to the city buildings works in conjunction with keeping one of your booster stations on. So like maybe one pump that serves a fire in 2047 during the max day of the peak hour, you have to turn on, you know, pumps at St. Andrews or Inverness. So, anyway, thanks for the opportunity. Comment?
So, you have the other note about the meter?
Note about the meter. You have to be more specific.
He's talking about the Walters building.
Do I have an update on the meter?
Yeah.
I know that,
That's really why we invited you.
I know I've given my technical input on what we can do,
Yeah.
whether keeping the Venturi and testing the Venturi like you had suggested, I think.
Right, I mean, testing, it's one of the most accurate, but the problem is, if you use probably a standard differential pressure transducer, if they're not calibrated and adjusted properly to the sweet spot of the Venturi, you've got a big problem.
Well, I
And I think
understand.
that's the problem.
So,
you
can
you can adjust that pressure differential transducer outside in the lab, okay?
Yeah.
And I would send it to those people in Rhode Island and have it tested.
So my boss probably wouldn't like this, but I'll give you a little cut. She's gonna send you an email. She's working on the financial side, okay?
Yeah.
I'll give you cut to the chase a little bit. So we're kind of proposing two things, is exactly what you're saying. Totally agree, we should verify. We're talking about actually, I've talked to the guy in Rhode Island, do you wanna come out here and verify this for us?
Can we be there, Josh, just for
Oh, no
technical-
problem.
Yeah,
No, I
we'd like to see
I would
it.
insist that you be there so that it's clear
Yeah.
that everybody's on the same page. So the other option is, yeah, do we want to just say, forget the Venturi because it has more maintenance associated with it?
Right.
That's more expensive with that option. So I think she's gonna respond to you related to that. She's double checking some numbers, that's why it's
Yeah.
taking a little bit of time on the flow for the past few months.
Yeah.
So we're working on that, and I agree with you, let's get it verified. I think that's a great idea.
Right.
And then make sure it's correct. I also wanted to let you know that we calibrate it. I have a work order that comes out quarterly.
Yeah.
Verified quarterly that transmitter is
Right.
in spec. So,
You know, I'm thinking loud with you here. I think it's gonna be cheaper for you to take that Venturi out, to have it sent back to Rhode Island, whatever, to test it, and buy a mag meter that's certified according to a WWA standard. And as you know, the maintenance on the mag meter is zero. And here's the sexy component. You're gonna pick out
Well,
304
we're a little off, can we,
304 PSI on your suction, on your pressure.
not to
You're
interrupt
gonna
you,
deliver more water at less cost. Big time.
Okay, yeah.
I have a question for Louis. You keep talking about why we shut off St. Andrews with the second connection. That's what this PER suggests, is shutting it down. Can you, with the technical side of this, give us a gallon per minute flow on pressure that this second connection would give us? so that
We have all that stuff.
Do we have that?
He sent me information on the, we have all that. You know, guys, we did go through this in big detail.
That's what.
And
I
if you
thought.
wanna revisit, we can do that, but here again, you know, after 6 months, we all forget what we talked about. And it's not healthy, you know. We make a decision, we move hell from China or whatever, we gotta move forward, just like these guys, or they want their money back. It's very simple.
Sometimes you can spend when you shouldn't have because you make a rash decision.
Well, it's not gonna happen here.
Nah,
Other times you can,
22.
not make them a decision can cost you also.
Mr. Chairman,
Director Esplin, go ahead.
well, we are we need to recognize, we've got, we may have $8 million in reserves, but we also have potential forecast pipe replacement cost of a number, I think that's approaching $200 million. So we have plenty of ways to spend that reserve. I mean, depending upon what you discover when you start digging up some of those sections of AC pipe that had no measurements, and that's the ones that I'm worried about. You know, we could suddenly have an $8 million demand on our hands. We don't know, because we haven't dug those sections up and had them analyzed yet. So I think it's, in view of that risk, it's imprudent for the board or management to talk about refunding funds until we have more facts with respect to condition of our asbestos.
Nobody's saying
Director
that,
Atchison,
Jeff.
nobody has, they're
You're putting
talking about
words in other
refunds.
people's mouths.
Brad, would you like to close your presentation?
Well, I'm not gonna answer any more stuff. I will review what Louis, you left with us. I think we heard everyone's point of view. I don't know what I'm expecting to hear you talk about the second connection, but, so there it is. It's back to be talked about. But,
I
yeah,
can email it to you. So.
Okay.
we'll definitely get some background information, especially on the design conditions that Jeff and Louis had questions on. I'm gonna guess that it's probably gonna come down to, there's really the focus of that zone, you're gonna see way different growth everywhere else. There's over 150 lots right now that are approved that can be built on today in the zone, not outside that zone. And they're not gonna stop the way. So 10 to 15, 20% flow growth in a short amount of time. And something's gotta take care of it. You can't just ignore health and safety factors or saving a few bucks. Wasn't gonna go there, but I think it has to be said.
Just a comment for everybody in the room here. You know, this is Billings Heights. We talk about Heights Water District. The majority of the Heights area is served by the city of Billings. People get this all misconstrued in their head. They don't even know what water system they're on. And the Heights water system, I'm just gonna say it, if we don't start to grow this thing, we're gonna die. And one way to get that growth is the 5B, because we cover a larger area. Now, that may go asunder because things change between now and then. We're not gonna, you know, we can't stop dead in our tracks. We have to look down the road, but we also have to look partway down the road because other things are going on with this consolidation study. Will it happen, will it not? Anybody's guess. So we have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. You know, because if we don't plan for that, we are definitely gonna sink. After we get the west end water increase and stuff on us, we're not gonna grow much when they can build half a mile away and have a lot less expensive water. So with that, we will close this meeting, and I appreciate everybody coming out for it. We do have a meeting on the third Wednesday on the 14th.
But I won't get it.
So,
because I don't-
thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.